Until I was 12, I lived in upstate New York, properly upstate, in the Finger Lakes. And one of my best friends was Jewish. His family was very observant of the Sabbath, and he and his siblings played a game during the week. Points were gained for doing chores, and points were lost for getting into trouble. The kid with the most points, who also met a minimum threshold by Thursday night, got to set the TV channel for Friday. Now, they could not switch the TV on or change a channel after sundown on the Sabbath. The TV was on a timer, so picking the channel meant the difference between the Dukes of Hazzard and the Rockford Files. If none of the kids qualified, his father chose PBS, which, to a 10-year-old, was the real punishment. That game was a hack. The first hack solved, how do we watch TV if we can't turn it on? The second hack was, once it's on, how do we decide on what to watch? Hacking is simply a creative way to solve a problem. It is chopping through barriers to get to a solution. Growth hacking was invented to solve a very specific problem. Startups need prospects to refine product market fit. They do not need a VP of marketing before they know what they're selling and to whom. So instead of strategy, growth hacking emphasized prioritization, rapid testing, and continuous optimization. But like most buzzwords rooted in something sensible, the definition drifted. Now, it is shorthand for junior people running AI-enabled LinkedIn demand gen while reinventing the wheel because their company is too cheap to buy one. Let's skip to the point. When business leaders talk about growth hacking, what they usually mean is, we have no money and no strategy. They hope hustle, efficiency, innovation will compensate for both. They love talking about tech, how to connect low-cost platforms to automate activity without expensive strategic thinking. They're chasing revenue, so they chase volume. They have not defined an ideal customer, and they do not know what messages will influence a buying committee. Marketing is a junior person reporting to a founder doing it as a side hustle within their own business. And yes, if you carpet bomb enough people, you will find someone interested in your product. Forget about the brand damage in the meantime. And this is where growth hacking gets its dubious reputation. There is a fine line between thrift and theft. Growth hacking frequently relies on piggybacking, using someone else's platform, audience, or infrastructure to capture demand that already exists. Now I understand the temptation. Brand takes time. Categories take longer. Paid media is ridiculously expensive and SEO is painfully slow. Cash-strapped startups must look for leverage. But piggybacking comes with risk. You do not own the channel. Growth will only scale until the host notices you and kicks you off. You can be shut off. When you do not own distribution, you do not control the rate of growth. Some days it could be a trickle, others a fire hose, and you cannot predict which you will get from day to day. Now, let's look at some examples. When Hotmail launched in 1996, webmail was new. No one was sure that people wanted to access their email via a web browser and store all those emails and attachments in what would eventually be called the cloud. Their biggest challenges were that they had no brand and no money. Now, their VC suggested adding, P.S. I love you. Get your free email at Hotmail. The founders hated it. But their launch was quiet, so they relented, minus the P.S. I love you bit. Every outbound email became a touch point. They piggybacked on user behavior and email infrastructure. Now, users tolerated it because the service was free, but by today's standards, it's spam. At the time, it was genius. Dropbox faced the similar constraints. No brand, no budget. In addition, they faced heavy competition. And their cost of acquisition from PPC ranged from $230 to $340. While they're only charging $99 per year, the time to break even was absolutely brutal. So they traded excess storage for referrals, generating 4 million new users in 15 months and saving $48 million in acquisition costs. Like Hotmail, they turned customers into marketers, but unlike Hotmail, they also relied on active advocacy and trust. Finally, let's look at Airbnb. They had to build a two-sided marketplace, buyers and sellers, or guests and hosts. They went where demand and intent already lived, Craigslist. They built tools to cross-post listings and redirect traffic back to Airbnb. But I can imagine that was quite a shock for the users. Click on a link in Craigslist, end up on Airbnb's site. They also identified Craigslist hosts and targeted them to build supply. So they piggybacked on someone else's marketplace to bootstrap their own. The irony? Airbnb was founded because Craigslist felt too impersonal. Now you might be sitting there saying, Skip, so what? It worked. Growth hacking does not eliminate spend. It hides it. Engineering time, incentives, integrations, that is all marketing costs sitting elsewhere in the P&L. Short feedback loops prioritize easy metrics, not necessarily revenue, and metric myopia favors short-term growth over brand. But as I explained in the demand gen episode, brand and demand work together to generate sustainable growth. The word hacking sounds cool. Hustle, speed, innovation. But is it okay to borrow without permission? In other words, steal platforms, attention, or audiences? Hacking is a creative way to solve a problem, not necessarily an easy way to solve a problem. The illegal way is usually the easy way. And as Yoda said, if once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Now, going back to a metaphor I used in the AI-enabled episode, growth hacking has become fur coat, no knickers. User numbers rise fast, but retention lags, churn increases, and you spend more and more and more to replace lost average revenue per user. That is not sustainable growth. It's all flash and no substance. And I'm not against growth. Every marketer should think in terms of scaling their business. And I believe in testing, optimization, efficiency, and repeatable frameworks. Original growth hacking embodied all these principles, but so does good marketing. So perhaps it's a branding problem. Growth hacking, as I said, sounds cool, and it fits the founders' move fast and break things ethos. Strategy-driven, methodical experimentation sounds, well, it's hard to say, and it sounds a lot less exciting. What truly separates great growth hackers is not budget austerity. It is cross-functional execution and obstacle removal. Hacker should mean get shit done. It is not do more with less. It is use the same tools in a way better. In a way better way? Use the same tools in a much better way. So, I'd love to know your take on growth hacking. Feel free to DM me or like and leave a comment below. Encouragement, advice, and topic ideas are always welcome. And if you like this episode, follow and share. Join me next time when I'll cut through more B2B buzzword BS. Until then, stay safe, make good choices, and keep skipping to the point.